The anonymous email arrived at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, addressed to every member of our company's board of directors, CEO embezzling company funds, proof attached. I stared at my screen, watching my own face in the grainy security footage, watching myself supposedly stuff cash into my briefcase from the company safe. The footage was damning, irrefutable, career-ending, and completely fabricated. But what the sender didn't know, what nobody outside of our IT department knew, was that I had personally installed every security camera in that building 3 years ago, and I had access to every single original file. The video playing on my screen was a lie. And I knew exactly who had created it. My brother, Marcus, had been trying to destroy me since the day we were born. Not figuratively, literally since the day we were born. We were twins, and according to family legend, Marcus had come out of the womb screaming because I had been delivered first. First by 4 minutes. 4 minutes that meant I was technically the eldest, technically the one who would inherit our father's position at Hartwell Industries, technically the one who mattered more in our father's eyes. Marcus never forgave me for those 4 minutes. Growing up as twins in a wealthy family should have been a privilege. Instead, it was a competition, one that Marcus was determined to win at any cost. When we were 7, he told our nanny that I had stolen money from her purse. I hadn't. When we were 12, he convinced our parents I had cheated on my entrance exams. I hadn't. When we were 17, he planted drugs in my car and called the police. I spent a night in jail before the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. Every single time, he almost got away with it. Every single time, something saved me at the last moment, a witness, a technicality, a stroke of luck. But this time was different. This time, Marcus had real resources, real power, and real motivation. Our father had died 6 months ago, leaving Hartwell Industries to both of us, me as CEO, Marcus as president of operations. It was supposed to be a partnership. It was supposed to honor our father's legacy. Instead, it had become a war. I didn't react immediately to the email. That was the first rule of surviving Marcus, never let him see you sweat. Instead, I calmly closed my laptop, finished my coffee, and drove to the office at my usual time. I smiled at the receptionist. I chatted with the security guard about his daughter's soccer game. I rode the elevator to the executive floor, nodding at employees who suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. Word travels fast in a company. By 8 a.m., everyone had seen the email. My assistant, Denise, was waiting outside my office with a face like a funeral. Miss Hartwell, the board is demanding an emergency meeting. They want. I know what they want. I kept my voice calm. Schedule it for 3 p.m. And Denise? Please ask Gerald from IT to come to my office immediately. Should I cancel your morning meetings? Absolutely not. Everything proceeds as normal. I saw the confusion in her eyes, the worry, the first seeds of doubt about my innocence. I didn't blame her. The footage was convincing. Marcus had outdone himself this time. But Marcus had also made a critical mistake. He had assumed I was the same naive sister who had spent our childhood being blindsided by his attacks. He had assumed I hadn't learned. He had assumed I hadn't prepared. He was wrong. Gerald arrived within 10 minutes, a nervous, thin man in his 50s who had worked for Hartwell Industries since before I was born. He had been instrumental in our security upgrade 3 years ago, and more importantly, he was one of the few people in the company who was completely loyal to me. Close the door, I said. And sit down. He obeyed, his hands trembling slightly. Miss Hartwell, I saw the email. I need you to know, I don't believe, Gerald. I held up my hand. I need you to listen carefully. 3 years ago, when we installed the new security system, we set up redundant backup servers. Offsite. Encrypted. Do you remember? His eyes widened. The cold storage in the data center in Virginia. Exactly. Those backups are completely separate from our main system. They can't be accessed from inside the building without physical authorization. I leaned forward. I need you to retrieve the original footage from the night shown in that email. November 14th, between 9 p.m. and midnight. Can you do that? Gerald nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his face. You think the footage was doctored? I don't think. I know. Because I wasn't in this building on November 14th. I pulled up my calendar. I was at a charity gala in Boston. 300 witnesses, including the governor of Massachusetts. My flight records, hotel receipts, and credit card statements will confirm I didn't return to the city until November 16th. Gerald exhaled. So whoever sent that email fabricated the entire thing. But they didn't know about the Virginia backups. They thought if they deleted or modified the local footage, there would be no way to prove the manipulation. I smiled grimly. They thought wrong. I'll have the original files within 2 hours, Gerald said, standing. Do you want me to bring them directly to you? No. I want you to set up a presentation in the main conference room. 2 screens, side by side. We're going to play both versions for the board this afternoon. I paused. And Gerald? Don't tell anyone what you're doing. Not a single person. He nodded and left. I sat back in my chair and allowed myself one moment of fury, just one, before locking it away. There would be time for anger later. Right now, I needed to be ice. Marcus wanted a war? Fine. He was about to learn that I had been preparing for this battle our entire lives. The morning passed in a blur of normalcy that felt almost surreal. I took my meetings. I reviewed quarterly reports. I approved a marketing campaign for our new product line. I ate lunch at my desk, a salad from the cafe downstairs, while employees walked past my office with carefully averted eyes. At 1 p.m., Marcus appeared in my doorway. He was good. I'll give him that. His face was a perfect mask of brotherly concern, his voice pitched just right between worry and sympathy. I heard about the email, he said, stepping into my office without being invited. God, this is awful. Who would do something like this to you? I looked up from my computer, keeping my expression neutral. I don't know, Marcus. Who would? He didn't flinch. Have you talked to legal? You should probably get ahead of this. Maybe release a statement, deny everything before it spirals. You think I should deny it? Well, yeah. I mean, obviously you didn't do this, right? He laughed, a hollow, performative sound. You've always been the golden child. Little Miss Perfect. No way you'd risk everything Dad built for a few $1,000s. A few thousand? I tilted my head. The email claims I stole over $400,000. Something flickered in his eyes. Just for a second. Right. Yeah. $400,000. Even more reason to get out in front of it. Marcus. I stood up, walking around my desk to face him directly. You seem very well informed about the contents of an anonymous email that was sent at 6:47 this morning. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's talking about the fact that footage exists. Not everyone knows the exact dollar amount supposedly stolen. I watched his face. Unless they watched the video very carefully. Unless they knew exactly what it contained before it was sent. Marcus's mask slipped, just for a fraction of a second, before snapping back into place. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I returned to my chair. I'm just observing. The board meeting is at 3 p.m. I assume you'll be there? Of course. I'm here to support you. Good. I smiled. I'm looking forward to it. He left without another word. I watched him go, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. 28 years. For 28 years, I had been defending myself against his attacks, always reactive, always on the back foot. I had spent my entire life trying to prove I wasn't what he said I was. Today, for the first time, I was going to prove what he was. The boardroom was full by 2:55 p.m. 8 board members sat around the polished mahogany table, their faces grave. Our chief legal officer was there, along with the head of HR and 2 representatives from our external auditing firm. Marcus sat at the far end of the table, maintaining his expression of supportive concern. I stood at the head of the room, next to 2 large screens that Gerald had set up earlier. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, I began. I know you've all seen the email that was circulated this morning, and I know you have questions. I'm here to answer them, but first, I'd like to show you something. I clicked the remote, and the doctored footage appeared on the left screen. There I was, or someone who looked like me, opening the company safe, removing stacks of cash, placing them in a briefcase. This is the footage that was attached to the anonymous email, I said. According to this video, I entered our finance office on November 14th at approximately 10:37 p.m. and removed $400,000 in cash. The board members watched in uncomfortable silence. There's just one problem. I clicked again, and my travel itinerary appeared on the right screen. On November 14th, I was in Boston attending the Massachusetts Children's Hospital Charity Gala. I have flight records, hotel receipts, credit card statements, and approximately 300 witnesses, including Governor Williams, who can confirm I didn't leave the event until well after midnight. Murmurs rippled through the room. Marcus shifted in his seat. So either I can teleport, I continued, or this footage is fabricated. Let me show you which. I clicked the remote again. The right screen now showed different footage, the same angle, the same timestamp, but a completely different scene. The finance office was empty. No one entered. No one opened the safe. Nothing happened. This, I said, is the original footage from November 14th. It was retrieved this morning from our off-site backup servers in Virginia, servers that are completely isolated from our main system and cannot be accessed remotely. I let that sink in for a moment. What you're seeing on the left is a sophisticated digital manipulation. Someone took authentic footage from our security system, inserted a computer-generated figure designed to look like me, and fabricated an entire crime. I paused. The question is, who had access to our security footage, the technical capability to doctor it, and the motivation to destroy me? Every eye in the room turned to Marcus. He was pale now, his mask of concern crumbling. Wait, I'm not suggesting anything yet. I clicked the remote again. A new image appeared, metadata from the email. The anonymous email was sent through a VPN, but our IT department was able to trace certain digital fingerprints. The editing software used to doctor the footage was Adobe After Effects, version 24.1. The same version installed on exactly one computer in this building. Another click. A screenshot of software licenses. Your computer, Marcus. The room erupted. Board members were shouting questions, demanding explanations. Marcus was on his feet, his face contorted with rage. This is a setup, he screamed. She's framing me. She probably doctored the footage herself and planted. I was in Boston, Marcus. My voice cut through the chaos like a blade. I have 300 witnesses. What's your alibi for November 14th? He froze. Because according to our building access logs, another click, another document, you entered the building at 9:42 p.m. that night and didn't leave until 1:17 a.m. Almost 4 hours. In the middle of the night. 3 weeks before this email was sent. Silence. Marcus looked around the room, searching for an ally, finding none. His carefully constructed plan was collapsing around him, and everyone could see it. I can explain, he started. Please do, said Victoria Palmer, the longest-serving board member. Her voice was ice. Explain why you were in the building for 4 hours in the middle of the night. Explain how doctoring software ended up on your computer. Explain why you're trying to destroy your own sister. Marcus's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. I stepped forward, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, power. Real power. The power of truth against lies, of preparation against ambush. I'll tell you why, I said. Because Marcus has spent his entire life trying to take what isn't his. Because our father left me as CEO and he couldn't accept that. Because he thought if he could frame me for embezzlement, the board would remove me, and he would finally get what he's always believed he deserved. I turned to face my brother directly. But you made a mistake, Marcus. You always make mistakes. You assumed I was still the naive little sister you've been manipulating since we were children. You assumed I wouldn't be prepared. You assumed I wouldn't fight back. I shook my head slowly. I've been waiting for this. For years. I knew you would come for me eventually. I just didn't know when. Marcus's face had gone from pale to gray. He looked like a man watching his own execution. You installed those backup servers, he whispered. 3 years ago. You were planning for this. I was protecting myself. From you? From exactly this kind of attack. I turned back to the board. I moved that Marcus Hartwell be immediately removed as president of operations and that a full investigation be launched into his conduct. I also recommend that we refer this matter to law enforcement, as fabricating evidence of a crime is itself a felony. Victoria Palmer nodded grimly. Seconded. The vote was unanimous. The police arrived 40 minutes later. I watched from my office window as Marcus was escorted out of the building, his hands not in cuffs, not yet, but his career, his reputation, and his freedom slipping away with every step. Employees lined the hallways, watching in silence. Some looked shocked. Others looked grimly satisfied. Marcus had not been popular. He had ruled his division through fear and manipulation, taking credit for others' work, punishing anyone who challenged him. His removal would be mourned by no one. As he passed through the lobby, Marcus looked up at my window. Our eyes met through the glass. I saw hatred there. Pure, undiluted hatred, the same hatred that had driven him to torment me since childhood, to sabotage every success, to spend 4 hours in a dark building fabricating evidence of a crime I didn't commit. But underneath the hatred, I saw something else. Fear. Marcus had spent 28 years believing he was smarter than me, more ruthless than me, more willing to do whatever it took to win. He had believed that his willingness to lie, cheat, and destroy made him stronger. He was wrong. I had spent 28 years learning, preparing, building defenses he didn't know existed. I had installed backup systems and cultivated loyal employees and documented everything, not because I was paranoid, but because I knew my brother. I knew that someday, he would make his move. And when he did, I would be ready. The investigation took 3 months. Digital forensics confirmed what I already knew. The doctored footage had been created on Marcus's computer, using software he had purchased with his personal credit card, on dates that corresponded with his mysterious late-night visits to the building. Email records showed he had researched how to send anonymous emails and video manipulation techniques in the weeks leading up to the attack. But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source, his own assistant. Brittany had worked for Marcus for 4 years, enduring his temper, his condescension, and his habit of blaming her for his own failures. When investigators offered her immunity in exchange for cooperation, she provided everything: emails where Marcus had discussed getting rid of me, text messages outlining his plan, even a recording of him bragging about how the board will have no choice but to remove her. He had been so confident in his plan that he hadn't bothered to hide it from the woman who scheduled his meetings and managed his calendar. Marcus was charged with fabricating evidence, attempted fraud, and corporate sabotage. His lawyers negotiated a plea deal: 5 years in federal prison, eligibility for parole after 3, and permanent prohibition from serving as an officer or director of any public company. At his sentencing hearing, he was given the opportunity to speak. He looked at me. I was sitting in the front row, and for a moment, I thought I saw something human in his eyes. Regret, maybe. Or just the exhaustion of a man who had finally run out of moves. "I spent my whole life competing with you," he said quietly. "Trying to prove I was better, smarter, more deserving. But you always won. No matter what I did, you always won." "It wasn't a competition, Marcus," I replied. "It was never a competition. You made it one. You made everything a war. And wars have casualties." He was led away in handcuffs. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt tired, the bone-deep exhaustion of someone who had been fighting the same battle for nearly 3 decades. But I also felt free. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to watch my back. I didn't have to prepare for the next attack, the next sabotage, the next lie designed to destroy me. Marcus was gone. And I was still standing. 6 months later, Hartwell Industries reported its most profitable quarter in company history. I had restructured Marcus's division, promoting talented employees who had been suppressed under his leadership, implementing systems he had blocked because they threatened his control. The company flourished in ways it never had under our father's joint inheritance model. The board offered to make my position permanent, not just CEO, but chair, with full control over the company's direction. I accepted. At the ceremony announcing my new role, Victoria Palmer gave a speech about resilience, about integrity, about the importance of leaders who build rather than destroy. "Cassandra Hartwell," she said, "faced an attack that would have ended most careers. She didn't just survive it, she turned it into an opportunity to make this company stronger. That is the kind of leader Hartwell Industries needs. That is the kind of leader our founder would be proud of." I stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of employees, board members, and stakeholders. I thought about my father, who had loved both his children but had never understood the war raging between them. I thought about my mother, who had died when we were 12, before she could see what Marcus would become. And I thought about Marcus himself, sitting in a federal prison, paying the price for a lifetime of choices that had led him to that doctored video, that anonymous email, that moment when he finally overreached and lost everything. "My father built this company from nothing," I said. "He believed that hard work, integrity, and innovation could change the world. He also believed that family was the foundation of everything, that the people you love should be the people you trust most." I paused, feeling the weight of what I was about to say. He was half right. This company was built on hard work, integrity, and innovation. But family? I shook my head. Family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty. It's about the people who stand beside you when everything falls apart, who tell you the truth even when it's hard, who would never, ever, try to destroy you for their own gain. I looked at Denise, my assistant, who had believed in me when everyone else doubted. At Gerald, who had retrieved the footage that saved my career. At the employees who had worked twice as hard in the months after Marcus's arrest to prove that Hartwell Industries was more than the scandal that had rocked it. "That's my family now," I said. "All of you. And I will spend every day of my leadership trying to be worthy of your trust." The applause was thundering. I visited Marcus once, about a year after his sentencing. The prison was a minimum security facility in Pennsylvania. White-collar crime didn't warrant maximum security, but it was still prison. Still cinder blocks and fluorescent lights and the particular hopelessness of a place designed to contain people who had lost everything. Marcus looked older. Thinner. The arrogance that had defined him was gone, replaced by something quieter and more broken. "Why are you here?" he asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've been asking myself that question the whole drive up." We sat in silence for a long moment. "I'm not going to apologize," he said finally. "I know that's what you want. Some tearful confession, some moment of redemption. But I'm not sorry for trying. I'm only sorry I failed." I know. And I did know. Marcus wasn't capable of true remorse, he was only capable of regret that his plan hadn't worked. "Then why come?" I thought about it. "Because you're my brother. Because we shared a womb for 9 months and a house for 18 years and a company for 6 months. Because no matter what you've done, there's a part of me that remembers the boy you were before the competition consumed you." His jaw tightened. That boy was weak. That boy was human. I stood up. "I'm not here to forgive you, Marcus. I'm not sure I ever will. But I'm here to say goodbye. To the brother I could have had. To the partnership we could have built. To the family we might have been if you had ever learned that there was enough room in the world for both of us. I walked to the door, then turned back one last time. When you get out, don't contact me. Don't come to the company. Don't try to rebuild what you destroyed. Just live your life. Find something that isn't about competing with me. Find something that makes you happy without making someone else miserable. Marcus said nothing. I left. That was 2 years ago. Marcus was released last month, early parole for good behavior. True to his word, he hasn't contacted me. I've heard through mutual acquaintances that he's living in a small town in Colorado, working at a hardware store, trying to build something like a normal life. I don't know if he'll succeed. I don't know if the competitive fire that drove him to destroy me has finally burned out, or if it's just waiting for new fuel. But I know that I'm done watching for his attacks. I'm done preparing for his sabotage. I'm done letting his hatred define my existence. Hartwell Industries is thriving. My employees are loyal. My board is supportive. My life is full of work I love and people I trust. And the cameras I installed 3 years ago? They're still running. Still recording. Still backing up to servers in Virginia that no one can tamper with. Not because I'm paranoid. Because I learned a long time ago that the best defense against people who want to destroy you isn't hope, it's evidence. And I will never, ever be caught without it again.